In today's video, we are going to address the drop feed. Oh my word, did I cause up a storm on Instagram a few weeks ago. I posted a reel saying that the drop feed is not very effective and coaches really should try and find more efficient and effective methods. And I wouldn't say cooked up a storm too much, but a couple of coaches took exception. Again, generally speaking, with the drop feed, it's normally the American coaches who get really wound up, and it must be a huge thing in America. And coaches, again, sort of will jump on a comment and they would express why the drop feed is so important. And generally speaking, a couple of things they bring up. It works on technique, which we'll discuss in a few seconds. It's great for beginners, and I can really control the environment. And they're the three main reasons. And one coach got really quite wound up and he started spouting off how many champions he's produced and how many top players he's produced with his drop feeding. And I just kept saying, like, just read the caption. Like, in the caption, I put things like the perception action coupling, representative learning design. A lot of this stuff's backed up by science. And coaches, again, I understand why coaches get wound up because that's all they know. And like the guy who's produced lots of champions, he kept telling me how many champions he's produced. Like, to him, that's the evidence. Well, I've produced lots and lots of champions. So let me just talk about why it's not very effective. So when you drop feed, you stand next to the player or quite close to the player and you just throw the ball either side, generally speaking, to both sides, and the player hits the shot. So if we understand that movement is a reaction to the environment that we're in. So when we hit a forehand, we use information, the ball flight, your opponent's position, your emotional state. You use lots of information and the body will decide the most efficient, effective way to move based on that information. When you drop feed, you take all the information away. So you completely strip it back. So the body and the player is not processing information. And I understand it from like some logic to it. Okay, well, if there's too much information, then it gets a bit overwhelming for the player. So let's strip it back a little bit. I understand that, and that's what constraint-led coaching is. Constraint-led coaching is you constrain the environment or the task to strip away some of the variability, but you still leave quite a big room there for the player to explore and work in. You don't completely strip it down. So we take away all the information from the player. So when the player goes back into a more open situation, like a rally, it's just too much. So you're going from one extreme to the other, and the player can't process the information. Therefore, the movement's going to change. And that's the whole thing about I'm just working on the technique. The technique's different. So the body will become really efficient and effective at hitting the drop feeds. And one of the coaches says, yes, but it makes really quick progress. And it does. Because you've isolated and stripped back all the environment, the player will just get better really quick because you've simplified the task so much. And there's lots of repetition, and the player will get really good at hitting the forehand in that situation. And that's where we create the illusion of learning, because the player thinks they've improved, the coach thinks they've improved, and the parents or anyone watching thinks the player's improved, but they haven't. They've improved in that isolated, sterile environment. Once you reintroduce it, it breaks down. And any tennis coach watching this video, you've done this yourself. I've done it. We've worked on a shot in isolation for 30-40 minutes. The player's got great success. You put them into a match play situation and it disappears. And this is why, because it's a completely different skill. So the whole thing of working on the technique, the movement or the technique will change once you reintroduce the player back into it. And coaches just can't get their head around that. And I did a video a couple of days ago about that we're not machines. We can't program the body like that. Players can't be programmed like that. And the guy and the coach who said I got lots of success doing this, and again, it is quite successful in the States, this type of feeding, allegedly. But then someone else commented underneath saying the coach above who had the success, he does lots of open drills and his players play lots of matches. That's where the learning's being done. That's where the players are really improving. So the coach isn't even giving himself credit, but they just believe that the drop feed is really effective. And it is, well, I say it's a matter of opinion, but I always back it up with science and facts. And coaches don't like that. And one guy came on, don't even know if he's a coach, saying that I'm just just negative, and I'm trying to be controversial for views and get sort of like clickbait. And it's like, no, I'm trying to do it to educate and help coaches out, because I've been that coach who believed it worked, and it didn't improve my players very much. And coaches, again, just are just so locked in with this mentality of these old methods that, again, research in science, if you spend just a couple of hours looking at it, just look at the perception action coupling, look at how we learn and develop movement skills, look at how we move on a day-to-day basis, we interact with an environment. And coaches just still can't get their head around that. And again, these coaches, again, I say it all the time, they have good intentions. They have good intentions. They believe they're doing good, but they're so blinded by the traditional methods because everybody's using them. And I said before, like Rick Macy did a video the other day where he's shadow swinging. Like, shadow swinging's a waste of time. If you've only got an hour with a player and you spend half the session drop feeding and shadow feeding, it's a waste of time. If you spend the time playing tennis, they'll get better quicker. And the ego of the coach always comes into it. And again, the coach in question who produced so many champions, that's just ego-centered. Like, he gives players no credit for the success that they made, that they had. It's all about his coach and his drop feed and made the players. And it's not. Again, if you look at the whole ecosystem around the player, I guarantee they're playing, and they were playing lots of unstructured, and they're playing lots of points. And I'd say it's frustrating, but it's not frustrating. And I know there's going to be pushback because I'm basically telling coaches, listen, your way of coaching isn't very effective, and people get quite defensive over that. And the idea is me not to preach, but to get coaches to think. And if some coaches look at that reel and reading the thread, and again, when I back it up with science, these coaches aren't coming back to me. They're just ignoring what I'm saying, and it's fine. But and last point on that, like, if you are going to comment on one of my reels or stuff like or even this video, like, it's going to be highly unlikely that you're going to change my mind unless you really offer up some real good hard evidence and hard data and hard science. I'm not going to turn around and go, oh, you know what, yeah, you're right, sorry, I'll take it down, you're right. And it's like, if I comment on another coach's post, I know I'm not going to change their mindset. Like the tennis god, like on Instagram, world's #1 backhand coach. I know for the fact if I comment on his post, I'm not going to change his mindset. But people think if they comment on posts, like someone's going to turn and go, oh yeah, you're right, yeah, sorry about that, yeah, you're right. But if someone actually made a valid argument with actual science and data, then I might turn around and go, you know what, okay, you might have a point there. So yeah, drop feeding, what a waste of time. Shadow swinging, what a waste of time. Vast majority of tennis lessons, what a waste of time. Until tomorrow, check out mytenniscoaching.com, and I'll speak to you soon.